Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and folks that just like to play in this world of scrap and recycling. It is great to see you all today. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where we talk about precious metals, industrial metals, safety, business of scrapping and recycling. We just have a lot of fun talking about this great thing that we enjoy doing. It is awesome to be here, and we are going to have some fun today. We're going to focus on what a lot of people refer to as the white metals, silver and aluminum. And then we're going to also spend some time talking about the implications, the possible impacts and such of the United Auto Workers strike here in the U.S. on scrap prices and those kind of concerns for us. It's great to be here. So let's see, Roger is going to be at a family reunion, so we're probably not going to see any comments from Roger. I hope he has a real good time. I don't think he's from West Virginia, so I don't think anybody's going to be getting married at that reunion. Oh, that was really bad. That was really bad. That's right, recycling. Welcome. Great to have you here. Scrapping Irish, great to have you here. As always, folks, let me know how the audio is going so that I can make sure that we are good to go as we move forward. All right, we're going to dive right in and begin our discussion on the white metal, that everybody knows as silver. So as always, we're using the chart from the APMEX website. I am not sponsored by APMEX. I take no advertising from APMEX, but I have used APMEX to buy and sell my physical gold and silver. For investment considerations, I am not a big fan of platinum and palladium as an investment. And for silver and gold, if you're going to invest in silver and gold, I recommend that you get actual physical silver and gold rather than the certificates that say that you own a certain amount of silver and gold that's in storage. Now, that's because I tend to be a long-term investor, whether it's dividends from stocks or in the case of silver and gold, buy and hold and only sell when there's really good price spikes. So I like to hold physical gold and silver that I can then sell sometime in the future as I need to. Cruiser Mac, welcome aboard. Scrap It All, welcome aboard. Great to have you all here. We've just started talking about silver, so your timing is great popping in here while we're talking about silver. All right, now silver is right now at 23.31 in the 24-hour chart here. We can say there really hasn't been a whole lot. It's up 1.38%, but not again. I don't get terribly excited by these 24-hour movements, especially on the weekends. But here we can say for the last 3 days, silver was doing some climbing. Overall, we had a nice little pop right here for silver. It is overall up for the last 3 days, 1.78%, which is nice. Hey, Daniel, great to have you, man. We had some movement here in silver, but this is still the $23 range. Hey, Mike, great to have you here, man. It's still a great time to be buying silver. I like these prices. These are the price ranges when I tend to buy when it's below $25 an ounce. Let's see what we got how has it been for the week? Kind of choppy going on here for the week. We kind of had this drop off here, and then we're climbing back out, and now we've had a little bit of a drop here. But again, these are not big price swings, and overall we're up 0.5%. So you can't really say that there's a whole lot that to get terribly excited. Now, again, remember, I'm kind of a long-term, I take the long term on things, right? There are people out there that, they're day traders and they love choppiness because choppiness means that they can play the game of trying to buy low and sell high. I don't have the time to focus on it like that, whether it's with silver and gold or with stocks. So I'm a buy, hold, and go for the long term on these things. For the month, again, we're up 1.75%, but what you saw happen for the month was that we had a nice climb early in the month, and now we're dropping back off again here. So again, nothing terribly exciting though. Not a whole lot of interest there. Now this is kind of interesting. If you look at the 3-month chart here, we're down 3.5% for the 3-month. And here, let's get our line going. So we go from here and we go down to here. So we had some drop off, but these are these swings that you see some people want to take advantage of. It's down here, so there are some people that say, well, I'm going to buy a lot of silver here, then I'm going to sell it when it's up here, and then I'm going to buy it when it's down here. Of course, the problem is you got to be really good at predicting those changes and knowing how you're going to time that out. You could try to take a line straight across here and say, all right, well, this trend is going to continue, so I'm going to buy now and believe that it's going to pop up here over 25 again. And again, I don't play that game. For me, I don't have the time or the energy to focus on it that much every day, which is what you have to do if you want to take advantage of those kind of swings. Year to date, silver is down 3%. If we look at the year, though, it's up 28.7%. So, here's this buy and hold perspective that I like to take. If you bought silver back in September of 22, you'd be up 28% right now. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, if you bought silver 5 years ago, you'd be up almost 37%. So that's even better. Now, of course, you've got to be able to live through this kind of flattish part here. You may have sold when it got up here, which would have been fine because you would have come out better, right? Sell a bunch of it here, watch it as it starts to drop, and then say, okay, we're getting down into the low 20s, so it's time to start buying again. And you'll buy up to a certain point and then stop buying. That's sort of the approach that I take with silver, right? When I'm holding in here, when I see a nice spike, I will sell off some of it. I'll watch as the price drops down into the low 20s again. When we get into the low 20s, then I'll start buying again. Overall, though, silver, I love to do this. I have to do this because I was just so lucky that I happened to be paying attention. Oops, wrong symbol. That I happened to be paying attention when that happened, and I was able to take advantage of that. But I'm not saying that's anything that's great about what I do. That I just happened to be lucky that I saw that and took advantage of it. That big price right there. So it was a good thing. Alrighty, so hey Copper Buck, great to have you here, man. And Bush Dog, great to have you here. Did I miss anybody else? I don't think so. Great to see everybody in here. So any questions, comments, thoughts on silver, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll be happy to address them. But I tell you what, I love silver. I love investing in silver because at $23 an ounce, it's one of those things that the average person like me can get into, and over time can acquire enough of it to make it a reasonably good investment. And as we've seen over the long haul, silver, like gold, tends to move in an upward direction, which is the kind of things that we like to see for long-term investing. Cruiser Max says he loves copper. I hear you, man. We're not talking copper today, but I love copper too. We will definitely be talking about copper though in the maybe next week or the week after. So, all right, let's see. Yeah, I'm waiting for any questions to pop up or thoughts or comments about silver as we move forward here. So, been an interesting, crazy week here. The temperatures have been pretty good, actually. I've been really pleased. It hasn't been terribly hot. We've had a lot of rain, and that has contributed a lot to why the temperatures have remained somewhat reasonable for us. But one of the things this week was really weird, and this brings me to the safety discussion today. Just some really strange things that I saw going on this week that prompted me to talk about this. And we're going to talk about vehicle safety, but I'm not going to talk about how you drive. We could spend the entire hour talking about how bad people drive here in Northeast Florida. I mean, it's just ridiculous how bad people drive around here. But what I do want to talk about though is your vehicle maintenance. Now, I'm sorry. I saw this comment. I think it might depend on the age and size of the werewolf, Cruiser Mac. Just, something to think about, okay? All right, so on the main road that I use going down to the Shard Cage, I saw 3 trailers, and these are scrappers trailers. It's very obvious these are scrappers trailers broken down on the side of the road. Okay, I mean, one of them, there's a wheel missing, right? So, and it's way overloaded, and there's a wheel missing, and so I'm thinking to myself, boy, that must have been pretty scary, because that's a 60-mile-an-hour road, and if the wheel came off while you're doing 60 miles an hour and that trailer starts going all over the place, holy jolie, that must have been. And think about the people behind you too, right? You got this trailer, and all of a sudden the wheel pops off, and you got all over the road, and yeah, that one. The other 2, I don't know what was wrong. There was nothing obvious. It's not like the trailer was tilting off to one side or those kind of things. But they were just, they're off on the side of the road. There's no reason why they would have been sitting there other than they broke down or something like that. The other thing that I saw a couple of times were just, vehicles where, you got the tailgate is missing, and so they're using rope or duct tape or something to hold some, put something back there to keep the stuff from falling out of the back of their trailer. I saw a car that had no rear window, and they hadn't even gotten around to taping up the rear window yet. I mean, I've seen where people have put plastic over the window and taped it down, and to keep the rain out and stuff like that. So it just we tend to get a little bit callous, and we don't think about how dangerous our cars, our trucks can be when they suddenly go wonky on us, right? You're driving down the road at 60, 70 miles an hour and you get a blowout. That's a bad thing, right? Bad things can happen. When your trailer wheel comes off and you tip your load into traffic, people are moving pretty quickly, people can get seriously hurt. So, hey, Jose, great to have you here. Don't worry about being late, man. You made it. So, vehicle safety, very important. Now, I also completely understand that, it can be expensive to take care of your cars. I mean, I can't do anything with my car anymore. You got to hook the things up to a computer now, get a diagnostic run. It's unbelievable. It used to, when I was younger, my dad and I could work on our cars, right? I mean, you open up the carburetor, you tune things up. I mean, it's just, you used to be able to work on your cars a lot. yourself. Now you almost need a double E degree or a computer science degree to work on your car. So I get it. It's not cheap, and it can be a real pain in the patootis to try to take care of your vehicle. But there are common sense things that we ought to be doing, right? Watch your tires, make sure your tire pressures are what they should be. When you do your oil changes regularly the way you should. Oh, hey, that's a question. How many of you use synthetic oil in your vehicles? I shifted over to synthetic oil a few years ago, and I'm just curious how many people out there use synthetic oil for your vehicles. Copperbuck, thank you very much, man. That's cool. Very sweet. I appreciate it. That's always nice when that happens. Greatly appreciated, sir. Thank you. I like the idea of the synthetic oil. I don't have to get the oil changed as frequently, but I still keep up with my oil changes. And the place that I use to get the mighty Sharkmobile maintained has a drop-off service, so I can come in with the Sharkmobile, and then one of their drivers will take me back to the shark cage so that I can work, and then they'll call me when they're done. They'll send the driver over to get me, so it has a minimal impact to my day while they're working on the Sharkmobile. Plus, I trust the mechanics there. I know the owner. I know the owner's son, so I trust them. I know they're not going to take me to the cleaners. The one thing that I need to have this conversation with the owner's son, because he's kind of like the guy that I talk to the most these days. One of the things that when I used to take the Sharkmobile to the Toyota dealership to get worked on, of course they would check all of the recalls. They had the complete history on the truck, and so they would do their full inspections, and they would advise me, in another few thousand miles, you ought to think about this, or we found this, or, that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit concerned that with this private shop that I'm going to, it's almost as if I don't tell them I want something done, it's not going to get done. And there's a part of me that appreciates when, like a dealership shop that is doing the safety inspections and letting here's the status of your brakes, here's those kind of things that help you plan out the maintenance work that you're going to need to do. And if I have to ask them every time I take it in to check certain things, I don't know, maybe something's going to get missed in there somewhere. So it's it's just something to think about. So Copperbuck says that he always uses synthetic. Yep. Okay. Very cool. Let's see, Jose, what are you saying there? That's funny. I did a study like that in high school in 1998, and the full synthetic had the same results. Okay, cool. All right. I assume what you mean by that is you didn't have to change the oil as frequently. I believe that's because that was the comment that I made. So I think that's what you're referring to there. So to me it just makes it makes a lot of sense. So I go with synthetic oil now for my car, for my wife's car, and I assume I don't see any real challenges with it. So. Any other thoughts on your vehicles, maintaining your vehicles, and if anybody has any comments about the dealer maintenance versus private shop maintenance versus doing it yourself maintenance, please feel free to drop something in the comments down below. There's no doubt that if you're taking your vehicle to a dealership, like when I was taking the Sharkmobile to the Toyota dealer for its maintenance, I'm sure I was paying more than I pay now taking it to this private shop to get worked on. But I don't know that I'm getting everything taken care of as well as it needs to be. So And again, there's nothing nefarious with this shop. It's just that I think these private shops tend to work more on the lines of tell us what you need done and we'll do it, as opposed to the dealership shops, which are doing preventative diagnostic kind of tests and looking ahead to help you be better prepared for the maintenance that you need to do. So, and again, got to maintain the vehicles. We use our vehicles a lot in the scrapping and recycling world. And so we really need to pay attention to our vehicles and take care of them, because otherwise we could be in a bad situation, right? So, all right, very cool. I'm gonna hit some coffee here, and then we're gonna head on over and go talk about aluminum. I gotta fix this chair here. Wait a minute. Ooh. Oh, look at that. I even got the right button. I was afraid for a minute there I was going to hit the button and the chair was going to go bump. That would have been bad. All right. Aluminum. Now we are back over on Kitco's website. Kitco is another one of those places that I have used for buying and selling physical products like gold and silver. And let's see, what are we advertising for today with Kitco? Looks like knives of some sort here. I'm not sure. We'll get rid of you. We don't need to look at that ad. We don't need to look at that ad. All right, so aluminum. Oh man, aluminum is going down. Now we're not talking about copper. We talked about copper last week, okay? We're talking aluma. Simon, great to see you, man. All right, so aluminum. Man, we don't like to see that at all. But again, this is just 24 hours, so let's look at the 30-day aluminum spot price coming up. That's nice. Look at that. Hey, wait a minute. Wait, burp. So that's pretty nice. Aluminum spot going up like that. And let's see, what did we go from 0.9535 to 0.9867? So that's US dollars per pound. So that's pretty decent. And that kind of I took some aluminum in this week and we did kind of good too. So I'm going to check in a minute and look at what my scrap prices were. Interesting thing about my scrapyard, my non-ferrous scrapyard, is that they don't change their pricing a lot. I mean, it's like something big has to happen and stick before they'll move their prices up or down. So that's just the way my non-ferrous yard likes to do things. Silver Scorpion, welcome. You're working and listening. All right. Well, I hope you're scrapping, working and listening. All right. So let's see here. Let's go with 60-day. So here, remember a few weeks ago we talked about aluminum and we talked about the spikes that happen here in aluminum. And I got to tell you, I still haven't found anything that, any reliable source that has been able to explain to me why we see this spikiness like this in aluminum pricing. I'm going to keep looking though, because if I can figure it out, I'm just very curious about this. But we get these weird spikes with aluminum that show up. Generally speaking, not much going on with the aluminum market here. But it's because we had this big spike, right? So when you get a big spike like this in a data set, it smooths out what's going on during the rest of the data set, and that makes it look weird like that. So here we are at the 6 month, and we had these two spikes, but overall we see the prices are moving down. And actually what happened was it dropped really hard, and then it's been on a slow drop since. So, don't expect to see a whole lot with aluminum for a while here. And then if we look at the 1-year aluminum spot, and I don't know why my I pushed the wrong button here. Let's see. There we go. So we've got this drop going on. Here's the spikes that we saw. So yeah, aluminum going down, but this isn't bad here at the we've got a little bit of upward trend here. This is what we were just this recent upward that we saw. So that's there's some signs of hope, maybe, kind of, if you really want to get creative in what you're looking at, or not so much maybe. And then our 5-year, we saw that aluminum prices had a real nice climb here, and then in early 22 they dropped off, and they've been kind of going down since. So let's go look at what's happening with our inventory levels on aluminum. We see the 30-day London Metal Exchange aluminum warehouse stocks. They were dropping off, and they just recently turned the corner to come back up a little bit. This would explain why. Let's go back up to the 30-day price, spot price. Oops, here we are, 30-day spot price. So with the inventory levels dropping, we saw the spot price going up. That's normal supply and demand kind of activity. That's what you expect to see go on. And this makes, this is a nice, good signal for us. Now the inventory levels have turned the corner. They're starting to come up, so prices will probably stabilize unless we have some more drop off in aluminum. And here's the 60-day, and we get this drop off, and then it climbs back up and drops off, and so that would explain some of what we saw going on with some of the pricing. 6-month London Metal Exchange warehouse stocks, generally speaking, overall down, right? So you've got, if you look at the trough to trough, that's going down. Peak to peaks are going down. So if all you did was look at the 6-month, you'd say, oh, it's starting to drop off again. And then we have, oops, wrong button, there we go. And now we see London Metal Exchange warehouse levels. Overall, you see it looks like it's on this upward trend. So as the warehouses, and if you look here, you with a nice fat line. We used to joke around in engineering world that, the fatter the pencil, the easier the math. So here, wait a minute, let's do this. So yeah, if you connect those troughs, they're increasing, which means the warehouses are generally getting fuller, but they tend to run up against some sort of ceiling here, and when they get to a certain point, then they start to sell off again. So and then the 5-year, this is overall, we were building up a lot of stocks, and then they crashed here, and then not building up as quickly, so it may be a while before inventories ever get back up there again. So we'll see. The bottom line for us as scrappers is keep selling your aluminum, keep moving your aluminum. Aluminum is one of those things. Oops, stop it. Aluminum is one of those things that I use as a cash flow item. When I get it, I sell it. I'm bringing in aluminum probably once a week. There are some weeks where I miss, but I'm bringing in some sort of aluminum every week to my non-ferrous yard because it helps with my cash flow. All right, Simon's got a good point here. The London Metal Exchange stocks are not that obvious. Some metals are not for trade, just for deposit. Yeah, no, good point. So, but we need to have some, I just use it as a good tool to see what's going on overall with the metals and the trends that the metals are making. So, but you're right. it's there's some things that aren't obvious about it. Copperbuck says, I would think rather it should go up with the mandating on EVs. So if what you're saying is that the price for aluminum should go up because we have to go to EVs, and EVs need to be lighter vehicles and would use more aluminum, I would tend to agree with you. And I think we're just very early into that cycle. The EV cycle hasn't really had a chance to give it the weight into the pricing that we would expect. So Copperbuck, the vehicle weight would have to be lightened to compensate for the battery weight. Yeah, absolutely. Even before the EVs, a lot of vehicle manufacturers were putting more and more aluminum in their vehicles, and to the point of almost all aluminum to lighten the weight of the vehicle, which would improve the mileage of the vehicle, even in a internal combustion engine. So yeah, I believe the long-term trend is that we're going to see aluminum prices continue to go up. Just simply, aluminum and copper, metals that are very important in the EV world and in electrification in general, we're going to see, I believe, aluminum and copper prices on a long-term trend going up. So, absolutely. Cruiser Max says, my GM truck has aluminum box, tailgate, doors, and hood. Okay. And it was interesting. For some reason, recently on YouTube, I started getting a lot of video hits on the Perry class frigates in the U.S. Navy. I watched a couple, and now I'm getting a whole bunch of videos. I used to serve on the Perry class frigates that were in the U.S. Navy, and they're being built and are licensed by some other navies around the world, and there's still some operating in other navies. The U.S. Navy has decommissioned all the Perry class frigates, but the reason I bring that up is because the superstructure on the Perry class frigates was aluminum, and it was a very interesting ship. The hull was steel, the superstructure was aluminum, and they had this very interesting interface layer where they would literally pressure blast aluminum and steel together so that they could weld the superstructure onto the hull. It was it was an amazing process. Some really interesting engineering there. Even in ships, they look at using aluminum as a way to make the structure lighter so that it can go faster. Aluminum, long-term prices are probably going to go up. Now, should you be holding aluminum? I don't know. Is anybody holding on to their aluminum? I can tell you that I am holding on to the aluminum wire that I get out of insulated aluminum wire. So when I strip that and I get the wire, I'm hanging on to that because one of these days I'm going to try my hand at casting and molding and melting stuff. And so I want to have some good quality aluminum around for doing that. So I'm hanging on to the aluminum wire. And that reminds me, last week somebody asked me about doing a video on the return on investment for stripping insulated aluminum wire. I have not done that video yet, but it's in my queue to work on. So we're definitely going to be taking a look at that. Let's see. Cruiser Max says, did the British not have aluminum ships that the Argentinians sunk with Exocet missiles? I don't know if those ships were aluminum or steel. The Exocet would have gone through either aluminum or steel in that class of ships. Those were, those were not heavily armored type ships. So I don't I don't know, Cruiser Mac, if those ships were aluminum or steel, or like the Perry class frigates, aluminum superstructures over steel hulls. I'm not quite sure. Although I do believe that if you've been watching the news about the developments with Russia and Ukraine, that Ukraine hit one of the Russian patrol boats, and that's an aluminum hulled boat, and it had to get towed back into port. So, okay. So anyway, good discussion on aluminum. Again, for whatever it's worth, I would say just keep selling your aluminum. Use it for your cash flow. If you do want to hang on to some of it because you have a reason, something that you want to do with it, great. But I don't think it's going to have that long-term value like copper, like we keep believing and feel good about is going to happen with copper. So, all right, so moving on to our business note for the week. Last week I talked about my business license, my tax business license that I had to renew. So, and all of these things come due right about the same time, this time of year. So I also had to renew 2 other certificates here. The first one is my certificate as a secondary metal recycler. So these are this thing here, this certificate down at the bottom, I have to keep on file at the shark cage. And I believe this was a whopping $16. And my certificate as a secondary metal recycler, same thing, about $16. The biggest thing with the secondary metal recycler, when you initially apply for your SMR certificate, you have to do a criminal background investigation, and that's what can kind of take a little bit of time and can cost a little bit of money. So when your first year of getting set up and registering as a full-up business here in the state of Florida in secondary metal recycling, there's a couple of extra costs because you have to get the background investigation, and you just have to let that one roll through. So once you have that certificate, assuming that you keep your SMR certificate in good standing, then it's just a $16 renewal fee. And they send you a letter that says it's coming due, pay by a certain date. You send them a check, and then you get your certificate in the mail. But you do want to make sure that you keep it in good standing, and it's pretty easy, right? Renewal on time, and don't do anything wrong. Which, as a secondhand dealer and a secondary metal recycler, means don't buy stolen goods. Basically, is what it comes down to. You recall I've talked about how the police showed up to go over the new requirements that I have to follow now. I'm big enough that I have to follow these requirements on to prevent or try to mitigate criminal activity. And the biggest one that's going to be a challenge for me, somewhat of a challenge that I'm still scratching my head over, is the thumbprint reader. I have a client that I've just flat out told him, look, I'm not going to be able to buy anything from you until I get this figured out. Private, just a private person has some computer stuff he wants to sell me, but until I can figure out how to do the thumbprint, I'm not going to be able to do that. Now, I have looked to see if there's any apps that for my phone, and I haven't locked in on a good app yet, because it seems to me like I ought to be able to use my iPhone and just do a thumbprint on my iPhone that I can save the data file, right? The challenge is that when I put that transaction into this database for the local law enforcement, I have to send them the picture of the license plate of the car, the picture of the driver's license, a copy of the thumbprint, and all the person's information. So that's where it gets a little bit, how do I put all of that together? Now, there is really fancy software that I could buy that the big scrapyards use that is part of, and it's all tied into their inventory management and their processing, right? So there is some expensive, fancy software that's out there that I could, if I really wanted to pay for it. I don't want to have to go down that road because that stuff's kind of expensive. I may end up doing that, but I just don't know yet if I'm going to end up going down that road. I'm going to keep looking. And Cruiser, I agree. There must be an app for it, right? If anybody's out there that knows a good app for doing this, please, by all means, let me know because I really want to. I'd like to. I'm not going to not comply with the law, right? I think I said that right. I'm definitely going to comply with the law. That's just, I'm not one of these people that tries to take the shortcuts, okay? But I also have to be realistic about what this software and, what the available software costs, and is that worth it for me? Because bulk of my customers are other businesses. And when I do a business-to-business transaction, I don't have to go through all of that because I have an invoice from the business, and law enforcement can always go to the business if there's an issue. Because most of my clients are businesses, it's not going to be the end of the world if I just say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay for this app for a handful of people throughout the course of the year that I buy stuff from. It's one of those unfortunate realities. Unless I can figure something out, some other way to do this so it's not terribly expensive. So anyway, we'll keep looking at that and try to figure that one out because that needs to get understood. But there is something that could help me, and break out my calendar here. I have a couple of events coming up that I'm going to be going to. The first week in October is Vid Summit. That's not going to help me with the scrap, with the thumbprint stuff at all. But the second week in November, I'll be going to a conference for ISRI, the Institute for Scrap Recyclers. And I will be meeting with a bunch of scrapyard owners, scrap and recycling owners in the Southeast region. So if I can't figure something out before November, maybe one of those folks will be able to help me figure something out. But that's a long time away, so hopefully I'll figure something out before then. By the way, I'm not going to show you the side that I've got all marked up and messy, but these little calendars are really cool. They come in a lot of different sizes, and what I like about these is they're right on wipe off, so I can mark on here when I have things that I have to do, and then as they change, I can very easily erase it and rewrite it or whatever, and I can see the whole year. See, I can see the whole year, which means it's much easier for me to visualize planning ahead for the whole year when I can see it like that. I have my electronic calendar, of course, that pops up on my iPhone to remind me of things, more detailed kind of stuff throughout the day. But that doesn't give me the full year perspective. Yeah, all right. Anyway, Copperbuck, I agree. Mutual donations. Here's the problem, though, that you got to be careful of. I'm not saying that may not work, but bartering is still accepting something of value for something of value. And so you got to be careful with bartering that doesn't come back and become an issue for you. Remember that the reason why the police is making me do this is because they want to mitigate theft. And if I am trading something with somebody, if I trade them something of value for the thing that they have that's of value to me, that almost makes me an accomplice if they are a criminal. So now, what are the odds that somebody is going to try to sell stolen goods to me? I don't know. That's the whole reason that law enforcement is so involved in the scrapping industry, is because there are people out there that are, trying to get away with stealing stuff. Now, in the case of the one client that I have on hold, I certainly don't believe that person has done anything wrong. The stuff that they want to sell me is not like, ACRs or anything that would suggest a theft issue. It's just that because they're a private citizen, I have to follow the rules with them, right? So, although I do like, what was the show? Oh yeah, in Young Sheldon, his brother George came up with the idea that instead of remember the aunt had a casino behind the laundromat, and George came up with the idea that the people would win tickets, and they would trade the tickets in for a stuffed animal, and then she would buy the stuffed animal from them for whatever the value of the tickets was. That way they wouldn't be gambling. I don't know if that really works or not, but it was certainly made for a good, funny TV show. Okay, let us get the ticket. Yeah. All right. So here in the United States, the United Auto Workers have decided to go on strike, and this is for the big three auto manufacturers here in the U.S. And so there is we as scrappers and recyclers, unless you work for the automobile, if you're part of the UAW, you're going to have your own challenges now, because depending upon, and again, I don't fully understand how this works, because they are not striking at every single one of the plants. It's select plants. And then my understanding from the news is that what they're going to do is the longer it drags out, the more plants they'll strike at. And so, it will slowly impact more and more and more workers. And the hope is that it becomes painful enough for the owners of the motor companies that they negotiate closer to what the union is asking for. But all that aside, what does it mean for us? Because automobiles use, in the manufacture of automobiles, as we discussed earlier, they're using aluminum, they're using steel, they're using copper. And so will we see some impact in the pricing of scrap because of what's going on with the UAW strike? So I would like to know what you all think. Go ahead and put your comment. Oops, no, over there. Yeah, over there. Well, it's over there for me. I'm not sure where it is on your screen. But hey, Phil, great to see you. So go ahead, drop a few comments. What do you think? What do you think is we're going to see, or how long do you think the strike will go on before we see some impact in the metal demand, which trickles down to the scrap demand? The news kind of is, when I say kind of, it's like I watch a lot of news, a lot of different sources, and try to pull it all together from a bunch of different sources, so that I have a pretty broad basis to kind of get an idea what's going on in the world. And a lot of the news folks are saying, a lot of the talking heads are saying that it would probably take about 4 weeks or so before we saw some sort of impact here in the U.S. On production and therefore the suppliers of the automobile of that industry. And the first suppliers that would be hit would be what they call the first tier suppliers. I mean, there are literally some companies who are set up right next to the automobile plant, and their product goes right from their factory through a conveyor belt over to the automobile factory. They're that tightly closed, together. So that first tier could be, they could start to feel the issues in say 4 weeks. And then you've got the second tier people that are feeding either the first tier people or otherwise around, in different levels coming into the vehicles. So at what point does that start to impact scrap prices? Or is it even that big of a consumer of the scrap that it becomes an issue for scrap prices? Maybe lead. Lead could be an issue, right? Because you've got lead acid batteries. And so if vehicle production starts to slow down, we might see some impact on lead. We talked about aluminum, so there might be, in 4 or 5 weeks, we might see some impact on aluminum. Shred steel. So here's an interesting question. I don't know how much shred steel goes into making the steel parts for, vehicles anymore, or if I don't. Sometimes you have to use raw ore derived product, but sometimes you can use a mix of raw ore derived steel and recycled material. So there might be some impact on steel, maybe. Copper, internal combustion engine vehicles don't use as much copper as EV vehicles, but the strike could potentially slow down introduction of or production of EV vehicles, so we might see that as a potential impact as well. So I'm curious what you all think. How long would we expect it to take before we see some impact on scrap prices? Will there even be? Will the UAW strike cause some impact in the metals? What do you all think? So Copperbuck, yeah, you're spot on there. All Ford trucks are aluminum now. Yeah. That and aluminum is highly recycled and recyclable. So maybe we would see something there. Which, I mean, we're already not happy with what's going on with aluminum. Come on, we don't want to have a slowdown in the consumption of aluminum. Board Sword, hey, welcome, Chris. Great to have you here. Not sure how this strike will affect prices, but I do know that all of this turmoil makes me appreciate the stability of scrap. Yeah, I hear you. Because especially in your world, which is primarily gold and silver, right, off of the boards. That's relatively stable compared to what might be going on with the other metals out there. So yeah, I hear you, man. And I have not had a chance to talk to my non-ferrous yard guys about this yet and get their thoughts on it. Again, my non-ferrous yard, man, I tell you what, some of their pricing are like rock solid stable. I was looking and it's like, what? As a matter of fact, no, that it's just their prices for things like insulated insulated number 2 copper or insulated aluminum wire or aluminum sheet or something like that. It's like it's been the same for the last 6 months and a year back, and so they really need some. When they change their prices, I know that something big has gone up. Let's see. Phil is saying all prices gone down 20 pence a kilo here. Okay. So yeah. The other thing just happened to it just popped into my brain while we were talking about these prices and aluminum. One of the things that as I was trying to figure out what was causing those spikes in the aluminum pricing, one of the things that I learned is that one of the three major influences in aluminum pricing is energy costs, and so it's become an issue in Europe, of course, because the war with Ukraine and Russia has affected energy prices in Europe, affects the aluminum prices in Europe, and that's going to affect recycling of aluminum as well, because it still takes a lot of energy to recycle aluminum. And so, and here in the U.S., we would expect a similar kind of thing. And it's funny, I used to think to myself, energy prices would go up in the winter when people are trying to heat their homes, but it's been so freaking hot down here in the South this year and across the southern United States that I think we may have had energy prices go up more because of people trying to air condition in their homes this summer than will go up this winter from people trying to heat their homes. Felt aluminum prices gone down, not at all. Okay, so stable for y'all, so that's cool. Just it'll be interesting to watch how it plays out. And again, if the talking heads are somewhat accurate, it's going to be at least 4 weeks before we see anything really start to come out of this. So we'll keep our eye on it, and if I see anything or hear anything that looks like it's going to be different than that, I will absolutely bring it up in one of our future discussions. In the meantime, we'll just, we'll all just keep doing what we do to scrap stuff out and keep the scrap coming back in, because, I don't want to sound, Pollyanna here with everybody, but really, scrappers, we're important. We do some really important stuff by recycling the materials that we get our hands on. And it's driven home to me every time I go out street scrapping and I see piles of sheet aluminum and piles of other metals laying on the side of the street. I know that the waste collection guys are not going to separate those to recycle them. They're going to go in a dump, a landfill somewhere. And so what we do when we're out there getting that stuff off of the street, out of businesses, out of homes, and getting it back into the scrap world is very, very important for the economies of our nation, for the good of our planet. And please don't ever feel like you're not contributing. Even if all you're doing is bringing back in bags of aluminum cans, that's an important contribution too. So keep scrapping, everybody. What we're doing is important. And I know it may not seem like any one of us is making a difference, but collectively, we're making a difference. And it's great to be a part of this community. With all of that, I just want to remind you all that if you have autoplay enabled, you will be auto-played right over to Scrapping Irish's channel when I terminate this live stream. If you do not have autoplay enabled, hey JCT, we're just getting ready to wrap up, man. So if you do not have autoplay enabled, please go to YouTube, look up Scrapping Irish, and join us over on Scrapping Irish's channel. You never know what's gonna or who's gonna pop up during those discussions on Scrapping Irish's channel. So have a great week, stay safe, get your vehicles maintained, and we will see you all on the other side of the pond.